Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajit Gopalakrishnan. I'm the Chief Performance Officer for the Department of Education, and I'm joined here by my colleague Abe Christ in the Performance Office, as well as Jeff Gregg, who is also behind the scenes here. Thank you so much for jumping onto this webinar at such short notice. I know we put out a lot of information on Friday, and we fully understand that scheduling the webinar on Tuesday afternoon doesn't give as much time as necessary to plan and get started, but we were anxious to get you the information because school was starting in most cases. We wanted you to have that information, and we also wanted to make sure that we provided this webinar to at least begin to answer your questions about these two collections that were referenced in my memorandum and Deputy Commissioner Nesmith's memorandum. So we wanted to schedule this at the outset so that we at least have that information available to you. The way this webinar is going to work is Abe's going to just walk through the survey really quickly and go through some of the nuances therein, and after that, we will open up the raise hand feature so that you in your control panel for the GoToWebinar, you'll see a raise hand. You'll be able to raise your hand, and then we'll go through one by one, unmuting you so that you can actually verbally state your question. And then we'll do our best to answer that. And if we can't, we'll take that back and get back to all of you as promptly as we possibly can. Just to sort of lay the stage for this, for these two collections, and today we're only covering the Qualtrics weekly collection. So just to be clear on that point. So in spring, when all of us as a state suddenly transitioned to fully remote instruction, no one was prepared for that. But our schools and districts and our educators, yourselves, did an incredible job in gearing up and preparing for emergency remote instruction that was really thrust upon all of you. We scheduled webinars, in fact, to share how some of the good work that several districts are doing. Those webinars are also posted on our website from the spring. But we also had instances where many of our remote students weren't connecting. Some of them were partially participating or minimally, or a good chunk of them never showed up after schools went remote in mid-March. So when we came back to the fall, and there are obviously situations where students are remote, there is a commitment now that we at the state level have to be able to know the extent to which students are remote, whether they're choosing to be remote because the parent chose that option or because the whole school is remote. Either temporarily for the first week or 2 weeks, which I know some of you are starting off that way, or you're remote for the foreseeable future, that we need to have a sense of how our remote students are doing, even at a high level at the start of school, to know whether they're disconnected or not. That is really our main concern in this initial get-go. So given that things are changing on a weekly basis, Abe will walk you through this weekly collection, which really just collects the learning model for the district by grade, and also the total enrollment and the fully remote students and the extent to which they're disconnected. And Abe will get into more of these details. But the focus in the weekly collection is on the remote students and making sure that not many of them are disconnected and that we're providing supports where possible and where necessary. The second collection, the student level collection, which will be a sort of add-on module to the Public School Information System Register module, that is a separate collection. We will not be discussing that today, just to be clear. There will be separate sessions on that. Kendra Shakir, who I know is on the attendee list, everybody knows Kendra. Kendra will be providing more information and more guidance and training on that. So that is coming as well. 2 points before I turn it over to Abe here. First one is that you should know that we are looking for full reporting on a weekly basis from all our districts, because that's what will help us make the case to the public that, with this wide array of options, hybrid, remote, et cetera, that we are actually engaging, and keeping our students. So we are expecting full participation, and that these information will be reported publicly. Danielle and the performance team is working with the open data portal to make sure that the learning model and the enrollment and remote percentage for our districts are reported publicly. So that will be happening on a weekly basis. The second thing I wanted to mention is that in the memo, we indicated that we want a response by Wednesday at noon. While that may be our expectation going forward for this week, since we're just standing up this collection, we know it's unreasonable to expect that soon of a response. And I know the whole thing may seem unreasonable at some level because we're asking a lot at this point, but it is really important to us and to all of us that we show that we can do this and that our remote students are engaged and not disconnected. So it's really important that we be able to make at a state level, be able to make that case on your behalf and on our collective behalf, if you will. So the first thing is that they'll be publicly reported. The second thing is that the due date for this first week, you have until late on Thursday to get this done. The system will flip automatically on Friday at 7 a.m., but you have till late on Thursday to get the initial response to the survey in. So again, I hope that at least gives you an extra day, a little bit of a breather to get this in. I know it's not as much time as I would have liked to give. You know, from normal data collections that we do from my office, this is not how we do business. We usually put out information, connect with districts, and stand something up in months of time. These are not normal times, obviously, with COVID and this pandemic. So we're really trying to move as fast as we can based on the demands that my office is getting. So we're trying to do our best, and we really, really appreciate your commitment and your support to work with us in this effort. So, again, these will be publicly reported. They will be. You have until late on Thursday to get this done. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Abe. He's going to walk through the survey itself, just give you a feel for it, cover the essentials, and then we'll open it up so that you can raise your hand and ask questions. So, Abe, take it away.
So G can, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen all right?
Yeah.
Give me a thumbs up when you got me here. Okay, good. Thank you.
I see the screen now, Abe. Can you?
Okay.
Is your audio still on? I think I might have lost your
Okay.
audio now.
Can you hear me all right now? Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry about the hiccup there. Thanks, Ajit, for the lead-in. I appreciate the sort of framing up what we're doing here today. As Ajit mentioned, what I'm going to do is basically walk through what amounts to a pretty simple survey. I know we've had some questions come up through today, so we do know that there are things that have come up, but pretty straightforward, simple survey, and we'll go through the 4 pages now. I also just want to say thanks to our colleague in the performance office, Danielle Bousquet, who is our local Qualtrics expert. She put this together in the last few days, so thank you, Danielle. So if you're looking for the link to the survey, the link is in the letter that came from Ajit that was sent out on Friday. That was, excuse me. That was sent out on Friday, September 4th. And on the second page, there's a online Qualtrics form link. Once you get to that, oh, hold on one second. And try this one more time. Okay, so once you get to the survey, the title of the survey is the Connecticut Learning Model and Enrollment Data Collection. Again, very simple, straightforward stuff. You're going to select your district. Just for sake of an example here, I'm going to pick Avon as a district. And once that you select your district, then you're going to be selecting your reporting period. As Ajit mentioned, we're doing this once a week. For each reporting period, we will be opening the survey on the Friday of the reporting period. We're asking that you get your results in by the following Wednesday at noon. We're giving you kind of a bonus extra day or so for this week's or for last week's survey. And you don't have to get it until like about Thursday evening. And then we will, just a little secret, we will be opening it, keeping it open until the following Friday at about 7 a.m. So if you are dragging your feet every week, that's kind of the final moment in which you can get your data in. So again, I'm setting it for the reporting, our first reporting period, which was last week. And we're going to go to the next screen. And then I'm going to enter my information. I'm going to give my basics here. It's important you get your email correct because we will be emailing you a confirmation. So don't gloss over this. And once you get the contact information in, you're ready to do your district start date. So you're entering the first day of school for the students in your district. And if it's not the same day for all kids, just indicate the first day for the majority of the kids. So, and I'm going to take two paths on the particular survey here because the first path is a case where I started school, I'm starting school after the reporting period. So for instance, a district that started today, 9/08/2020, I'm going to submit the next day, and this is basically going to end the survey. We've gotten what we need for you for this particular reporting period, and so this would be for all districts that would have a date, a start date after the reporting period. So you'll see what happens here. Oh, it doesn't like my phone number. Sometimes it doesn't like phone numbers. Okay, and once you do that, the survey says, okay, we've got the start date after reporting period. It will be sending you a email confirmation. It also will give you your data here. You can download as a PDF just as a confirmation. So that would be in the event for a district that had a start date after the reporting period. Now for the little more challenging side of the collection. I'm going back to the form here, and this would be for districts that have a start date during the reporting period. Obviously, all districts will eventually hit this point, and we'll use an example now for a district that had a reporting period this past week. So again, I'm going to choose Avon. I'm selecting the reporting period. Okay, and I'm going to do a start date of last week sometime, which is going to result in a whole different set of questions, or some follow-up questions in terms of the model. As Ajit mentioned, you do have, if you do have questions as we're doing this, we're going to take questions at the end, so log them in your mind, and we will use the raise hand feature and take questions after. Okay, so I started school last week, and then this is the page where we're going to be asking you your learning model by grade. So what was the model used between the 31st and the 4th, basically last week, at each grade? If there was more than one learning model used, you would use the one that the majority of students would have used. And you're simply going to indicate by clicking here the applicable learning models that you would have used. Okay, and before you get excited about how do we define and what does each of these mean, you can click on this PDF right here, and it defines your learning models, the 3 learning models. It also defines a little more clearly the reporting period that was at the beginning of the survey, and then finally your enrollment count definitions, total students, fully remote students, and fully remote students who are disconnected. We're going to get to that in 1 second. So again, you're going to complete these by grade, and then click, you're on your way to the next and really final page of the survey where you're going to indicate student enrollment counts for total students, total fully remote students, and then total fully remote students who are disconnected. Once again, it's important to note that this link right here will take you to this PDF, which will help you define each of these buckets. So the total student count, the total fully remote student count, and then the students who are disconnected. And then if you have any closing comments, we included this box simply because we felt that if there's some circumstances that are unique to your particular district, we would appreciate any comments. You can throw them in here, but it is, as it says, it's an optional box here. That's quite high, so we'll just say 66 students, 33 who are fully remote, and 3 who are disconnected. And what a great survey. And then once you've done that, you're ready to go to submit. And the final page, which basically says you will be emailed a copy of your responses. You will, once you hit submit, you can also download a PDF. And in the event, you can actually back up right now and fix any responses that you might have thought about for a minute and you think might be wrong. But we will be, if you have a problem, once you've submitted, we will be taking the latest timestamped version. So for instance, in this case, I've been using Avon. We'll of course delete these Avon submissions, but Danielle would be taking the latest submission for Avon in a case where you might have to go back and resubmit another response. And then I'm referencing my colleague, Jeff Gregg here. Jeff is really serving as point for the collection here. Jeff is working in collaboration with Marlene Shamroy, who is also helping us out, another team member in the performance office. So thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Marlene. But if you have questions, you can certainly email myself, but Jeff, you can send an email to Jeff as well. So once you hit submit, you're really done with the survey. Again, it's going to give you the option to download the PDF. If you entered your email correctly, you will receive this electronically as well. Okay, so I think that does it for a demo. Ajit, if you wanna, I think you're gonna manage the questions. If you wanna open that up, that would be awesome.
Sorry, Abe, I'm having some audio issues. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, yep.
Okay, good. Thank you for that presentation, Abe. I think we're ready to move on to question and answers. So in your control panel, you should now be seeing the option to raise hands. So please raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll call on you one at a time. Unmute you so you can ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. right, I see a bunch of questions. First from Bob Gilbert. Bob, I'm going to unmute you now. You may have to unmute yourself now, Bob. There you go. Bob, are you there? Hello? Bob, are you there? Okay. I'm going to try Amy Germano. Amy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for this presentation. I have a question about the fully remote students when we're counting them. I didn't know if you might be able to pop back up those definitions on the screen. That might help answer a number of our questions. For
Okay.
the fully remote, do you want us to count people, only the ones where the family's elected to be remote, or should we also count the students that the program they're in is fully remote? Should we combine them together?
Can you say more about what you mean by program?
So if we have, say, our itinerant pre-K students, their program is offered only in a remote fashion. It's not that the parents elected for them to be remote only. That just happens to be, as we're starting school, how we're offering the program. So
And
they are fully remote, but it wasn't a parent election. So we should still count them amongst our fully remote.
yes.
And then because we have students coming in and out of the different choices, I saw that our district-wide enrollment is on the last day of the period. Is our fully remote students also the count on the last day of the period? Or if kids are moving in and out, how do we decide how to count them?
So your count of students would be on the last day of the period, right?
Mhm.
And the fully remote students is a subset of those total students. And we're intentionally going with the last day because they would have had to be fully remote for that week.
Okay, so but we might have kids who've changed their mind about being fully remote during the course of the week. So our fully remote student count should be just the kids who are fully remote as of the last day of the period?
Correct. So can you elaborate more on like who would be a student who flips back and forth? So meaning that the kid was fully remote for the first 4 days of the week, but then decided on the 5th day that they were not going to be fully remote and they're in person now.
Correct, or vice versa. The parents might have started, we're doing a hybrid mode. So the parents might have started school in hybrid rotation and then decided they prefer to be fully remote. And so that may not change in this very first week in school, but I could see it changing as we go
Sure.
on. And
Sure.
so
So,
our accounts would be different from day to day.
right.
Also,
So
we're
if,
going to have new enrollees and withdrawals. So even just from the natural ebb and flow of people moving in and out of the district, the number will change.
right. So when we say fully remote, they would have to be, in your minds, you would have to consider them as fully remote students on the last day of the week. So if by the last day of the week that has changed,
Mhm.
either because they have now switched models or they wore another model and towards the latter part of the week they switched, that I would say you wait till they were fully remote and then report them in the collection as fully remote.
Fully
But if,
remote for the whole week,
yeah, you would have had to consider them as fully remote. At least that's what I'm thinking out loud, unless Abe, did you or anyone else have a thought on that?
My thought would be, it would be much easier for us to tell you who's fully remote today, rather than to go back and we'd have to run calculations for every day of the week to see who was remote on a given day, and then see if they were remote on all 5 days or not.
So it would be easier for you to just say, on that snapshot day of the last day of the week, how many students did you have? And of those, how many were fully remote?
Yes, on the last day, how many kids are fully remote?
Okay. I see the nuance of what you're saying. I think that makes sense, but let me do this. Let me confer back with the crew after this webinar and we'll send out a follow-up note briefly, or we might just clarify this definition or just add to it here.
Thank
But your
you very
assumption
much.
generally sounds reasonable, but I just want to confer with the group.
I would just like to add that if it's somebody who's moving from in-school to fully remote,
Hmm.
then your next question down, we're talking about disconnected. You would
Hmm.
know if they were disconnected or not by the fact whether or not they had been in school. Because even if they were fully remote only on the last day, we would
Hmm.
still be able to attend, we would still be able to tell if they had been absent all week or not.
Right. Regardless of whether they were in person in the first few days and then remote in the latter 2 days.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, Amy. Let me just confer with the team and send you a quick note to everybody later this afternoon.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And
Sure.
Amy, I don't know if you can see, I think you can see my screen, but the PDF doesn't go into as much detail, but does have the student count definitions here for enrollment as well as the learning model. So you might want to take a look at that when you have a chance too. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, the next question, Emily Rilo.
Hi, I may have missed it, and if I did, I apologize. I just wanted clarity about the reporting period. Is that as of Friday of last week, or is that, what does exactly that mean?
Yeah, so the reporting period is, so for instance, our first week of the collection was last week, Monday through Friday. We opened the survey on that Friday, so last Friday, and we're asking you to complete the survey based on what happened in school last week. We will mimic that same collection this week, starting this Friday. But first, we'll close last week's on Friday morning. Hopefully you stayed with that.
So we're looking to collect this data on a week-to-week basis?
Yes, we are.
Is
Yes,
that
that's
okay?
correct. Yeah. For the and I think one of the questions, because we have received some questions coming in earlier today, you know, is this, how long will this be ongoing? We're obviously monitoring things, and for right now, we're saying it's a weekly collection for the foreseeable future, but given that we're doing the PSIS collection too, once that opens up, we'll obviously be watching things and we will communicate with you. But for now, we're asking that weekly, opening every Friday for that week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Ajit, we can't hear you.
Next question is from Matthew Hepfer. Hi, Matthew. I'm going to unmute you. You may have to unmute yourself.
All right,
There
can
you
you hear
go.
me now?
Yes.
I guess I'm anticipating a little bit of, I don't want to say pushback, that'd be too hard of a word, but last week we opened fully remote and we also launched a new platform. We launched Schoology, and we had kind of some growing pains getting students logged in to Schoology for the first time. And so I have a handful of students that I worked with for several days to get enrolled in Schoology and be able to see their classes. In my mind, they weren't disengaged, but it took them a couple of days to get caught up and engaged through no fault of their own. So I'm just wondering how stringent you're going to be about what we consider engagement.
Good question, Matthew. Abe, could you scroll down to the Yeah, our intent of collecting. Hey, Abe, can I ask you to mute? I'm getting some echo.
I'll mute myself.
Okay. There you go. Thanks, Matthew. Sorry about that. So the intent behind trying to find out the extent of disconnected students stems from the concerns we had in the spring, where thousands of students went missing for weeks on end, and we had no connection whatsoever. So the definition here is intentionally is that they did not connect with school even on a single day. So connect can take different forms. It doesn't have to mean attendance in particular classes or completion of work per se. That comes actually in the monthly collection, the student attendance collection that we're going to stand up at a student level. Here, we're really trying to see, are there disconnected students? So if there are school staff who are engaging with those students, working to get them connected, or working to solve technical issues like what you were saying with a new LMS, then it seems to us that you know where the students are, you know who they are, you know what they need to be in, and you're working with them actively to get them connected. It's when the students are completely non-responsive and there's no connection to them, that's what we're trying to identify here in terms of disconnected students. Is who is like you're trying to reach out and you have no idea where they are, there's no response, they've not logged into any of their classes, they've not responded to any emails, they've not submitted any work, there's been no conversation with anybody in the school, they're completely disconnected. That's what we're trying to get at with the disconnected portion. Does that help?
Okay. That does help. I will say, I will give you the numbers, and then sometimes at this time of the year, the first 2 weeks, we have kids who've moved to Texas and haven't bothered to tell us yet. So what may be disconnected one week may be unenrolled the next week, but I'll be happy to do my level best to give you this. I'm assuming that we're going to get some guidance. I know I saw the memos on attendance, and the attendance secretaries here in Wilton have a lot of questions about attendance because we're in a hybrid model starting today. So I'm assuming we're getting more guidance from you beyond that memo that we got last week.
Yes, there will be a webinar that Kendra is working to stand up. First off, on suggestions from your peers on how to potentially set up your local information systems to track that attendance, but then also on those remote days, how to get to the in attendance threshold of the State Board of Education of at least half a school day. So those pieces, there is a separate webinar in the works on that front, and I imagine there'll be additional memorandum and guidance that'll be coming out as well. All right, the next person with hand raised is Sarah Brajawi. Sarah from East Hartford, you are muted yourself. There you go.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good, how you doing, Sarah?
Good.
Sarah.
Really simple, stupid question, and I apologize. Ajit, I did complete the survey earlier. I just want to know, do you want us to just go back to that memo that you provided? Should we just continue to use that link? You guys are just going to update the survey. It's going to roll over, so just keep using that link every Friday when we go to complete the survey, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
That's a good question.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Yeah. And Sarah, we did see you submitted. You were one of the first ones, so thank you.
Sorry, I'm an overachiever. I'm trying to be like Ajit, you know.
You guys are funny. Next question comes from Marianne Guglielmo. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, I'm at Villa Maria, and we have students here that are privately placed. It's special education school. For the total numbers, like say for the total number of students, do I use the total enrollment that we have collectively as a school, or just those that were placed here with IEPs? Because our students come from, New York as well as Connecticut.
Yeah, that's a good question. We are only looking at Connecticut public school students here.
Okay, so all our figures would just be based on those students. that we have here placed as an IEP, you know, from a Connecticut school. Public school.
Correct. That's
Okay.
correct. If you have other privately placed students, or whether you have non-Connecticut students who are placed by New York schools or whatever, then those would not be part of this submission. We're really interested in Connecticut public school students.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
G, you know, if I can inject one comment here too, I don't know if I mentioned this during the survey presentation, but when the districts, not the approved private special eds, but the districts are completing their enrollment counts, you should be excluding those APSEP students or other students that might be outplaced to other public school districts. So please keep that in mind on sort of the flip side.
Well, that's an important clarification. Obviously, when it comes to PSIS reporting, the school district that is outplacing the student reports the student in PSIS. And that will continue to be the case when it comes to PSIS and the monthly attendance collection. But for this weekly sort of stopgap enrollment and remote student and learning model collection, just keep those outplaced students, whether they be outplaced to at the APSEP outplaced students out of your count. Okay. Next, I have a question from Jean Starkman. Jean, you have to unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Okay, I guess in combination, if you have a student that say is full face-to-face or hybrid, do you anticipate the state asking us to track, you know, how the kids can move in and out of remote and hybrid and face-to-face back and forth? Do you anticipate asking the districts to report on the attendance at the time that they were, say, face-to-face if they've now gone remote, in terms of us creating different attendance codes and issuing a whole new way of taking attendance for our teachers in Power School? That seems to be a big concern, because I see a lot of other districts saying, oh, I'm going to create an attendance code for my remote students. But what if a student is a face-to-face and is homesick that day, but not well enough to participate online? Are we marking them remote present? Or, you know, do you see the state asking us to qualify our attendance codes?
So I know this is jumping into the next collection, the monthly collection. So in the monthly collection, the short answer, well, I don't know if there's a short answer. Basically, we are going to be looking for days of membership and days of attendance for both remote days and in-person days. And I know kids can move back and forth. So which is why sort of on the monthly side, we're basically saying for the month, tell us for the kid, how many days of membership did they have in in-person days? How many days did they have in membership in remote days? And also how many days of attendance did they have in person versus remote? So that's what that student level collection will go to. And there we will get into some of those nuances that you're raising, Jean, which is what if, like the scenario you gave, right? A student who is a in-person student but happens to have a situation that maybe necessitates that they participate remotely. Is that permissible? And we treat that day for that kid as a remote day. And those are the kinds of things that we'll be able to discuss on the student level remote, student level attendance collection. But the short answer there too is that there is going to be some flexibility in how you handle this. But ultimately, you are going to need to be able to track the days of membership for remote days, days of attendance for remote days, days of membership for in-person days, and days of attendance for in-person days.
Okay. I don't know if this affects you, if you can answer this in any way. Is there some kind of union issue with teachers changing the way that they have to take attendance, if we're kind of upheavaling them and giving them a whole set of new codes to apply in different situations? Is there going to be some kind of union backlash? And I don't know if you would even know this.
That I don't know, but I think we'll make a note and we'll discuss that as well.
Okay.
We know that we're not alone in sort of being able to or looking to track remote days of attendance. Many other states do this. And I think, frankly, I know there are many educators who have wanted to use some level in the old days, now pre-COVID seems like ancient history, but wanting to track, wanting to count certain days for remote learning as school days. Clearly, the state board is now permitting that for this year. They're saying that, remote days can count as school days. So that's where this whole expectation is coming from, to be able to count the attendance for those remote days. So it seems like the guidance we have is reasonable, but let me take that back, Jean, in terms of, are there potential union ramifications? We'll discuss that and see if we need to do anything around our guidance that we've put out.
Okay, thank you.
Sheila Osborne, you're next. I see you're muted yourself. There you go.
I just have a quick question. I know you mentioned about scholars. Well, to start off, we have an MOU with Achievement First for our high school scholars, and we're not with them weekly, so we wouldn't add them in our attendance, but I would have to add them in the PSIS at the end of the month with Kendra, right?
So you're asking, Sheila, whether you should include those students in your count for this weekly Qualtrics survey then?
I don't know how we could. Well, they're at another school. They're at Achievement First, and we're at Cherokee.
No, I understand that, but I believe that you're reporting those students in PSIS, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me get back to you after this call too. I just want to again huddle with the team on this because I know this is a unique situation. So let me huddle on that. I know there's a couple other situations like this. So let me huddle back and we'll get back to you
Okay.
this afternoon.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Tony Serio, you're next. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm probably just looking for clarification. So I have a school with 454 students. I have a hybrid model. I have 200 students that are in school on, well, Monday and Tuesday, and then 200 that are in on Thursday and Friday. I have 54 kids who are always virtual. On the day that the 200 are not in school, they're virtual. So now it's Friday. So on Friday, I'm going to report that I had 200 students, or how many there might be of the 200 in school. I'm going to be reporting 254 who are virtual. Amongst that 254, I'm going to be reporting the number of students who are not able to participate virtually because of some sort of issue. Might be technical.
Yeah. So, but just to clarify here though, so in the example that you gave, and I don't remember the exact numbers, Tony, but so I'll improvise here a little bit with your numbers. So let's say you had 500 students at your school, 225 are coming A days, Monday, Tuesday, 225, another 225 are coming Thursday, Friday in the hybrid model, and 50 students are fully remote, right?
That's correct.
So the only ones you would report to us as fully remote would be those 50 students.
Oh, okay.
Okay? They are the fully remote students.
All right. So I would then really report that I have, well, we'll use your example. So I'll have 450 students that I'm reporting as students who are in person, and I would have the only the 50 as reported as fully remote.
Correct. And of those 50, how many are disconnected is what we're looking to see, who never connected anytime during the week.
Okay, but what if students amongst the, again, the 450, let's say that that some of those students, when they do go home and they're trying to get online, they're having difficulty. Would I be also reporting them at that point?
Not in this weekly collection. Not in this weekly collection, because in this weekly collection, really, like I mentioned, we're really trying to get a handle on who are the students who are truly disconnected. You know, you've offered 1 week of school. those students who you're talking about who may have some tech difficulties, they're really hybrid kids, right? So your school's offering
That's
a
right.
hybrid model, and those
That's right.
students have committed to the hybrid schedule. So they're coming either in person Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So if they have a tech difficulty day on an off day when they have been in person for the other 2 days, they're not disconnected students, nor are they fully remote students. They're hybrid students.
They're
They're
hybrids.
not part, we're not asking about them in this weekly collection. We're not calling them out per se. We're calling out those 50 students in your instance because those parents have opted to be fully remote for them.
That's correct.
And right, so those 50 students is who we're sort of paying attention to say, hey, those 50 students, are they connected? How many of them are disconnected? Presumably it's 0, but potentially it's maybe a handful, you know, maybe a handful of students just couldn't connect. And we
Okay.
understand that stuff happens. That's who we're trying to laser in on in this weekly collection.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that clarification. That helped me quite a bit.
I don't think you're probably unique in that. I think it probably helped others too. Abe, did you want to jump in?
No, I was just gonna, I mean, I think that example was good because I think talking through that is helpful, but I think going to the learning model definitions, although there was that one nuanced question that was first by, gosh, I think Amy asked that.
Amy from Fairfield, yeah.
These definitions definitely encompass that example. So please, before you start scratching your heads like where everybody goes, take a look at these examples or take a look at these definitions. They should be helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
The next question I have is from Erica Veronese. Hi, Erica, you can unmute.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Okay,
Hi.
good. You can hear me. Hi. So I unfortunately am one of the ones who got the messages late today, so my head's still spinning. So I'm not even sure where this PDF is.
Oh.
I got the emails from Renee. There was a bunch, I guess, of districts that said they hadn't gotten the messages, and I happen to be one of them.
We
So I just
will, we have the list of attendees on the webinar. We will recirculate the link to the survey. And
Thank
this
you.
PDF is linked within the survey itself.
Gotcha. So you have to be in there at a certain point to get, I went right to the main screen where it says Connecticut Learning Model. And I just don't see, is there another link somewhere that I'm just not seeing? Or does it have to be in the survey?
It's actually, once you click onto the survey,
Gotcha.
it appears in the third page that you would be on. It's on the third and the fourth page.
Okay. And then I'm hoping, I know this is probably more a Kendra question about the attendance codes and things. I know everybody's kind of probably wondering the same things, like what's the best approach, I guess, to coding it for remote versus in person.
And so Kendra is on the call, but she's also lining up a couple of districts to share the local district practices so that you can see what your peers are doing and maybe ask them more questions of how to set it up in your local SIS so as to make it easy on yourselves and your teachers for monthly report.
That sounds good. I like easier. And then the only other thing I would ask is, will this affect the October collection as far as PSIS goes? We're going to be kind of tight if we're doing one at the end of September and then expected to do one right again at the beginning of October.
Yeah, I know, and it's not easy on you all. It's not easy on us.
Right.
There are a lot of moving parts. I just know that we will be understanding, and we will be understanding of you and the challenges that you have, and understanding of our own teams here too, because
Gotcha.
Kendra is also the one who's going to be handling that monthly attendance collection, and Dave Williamson on our IT staff is the person who's going to be developing that work. So it's landing on the same few people because they have the expertise and the knowledge to do this. So we understand, and we will be acknowledging and understanding of that fact.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem, Erica. Thank you. Just give me one moment. The next person on the The next question is from Sandy Timmons. Sandy, I have unmuted you. Go ahead.
So we started on the 3rd, and we did have remote learners. And if they did not connect that very first day as a remote learner, would we then count them so they were absent? So let's just say they were absent that day. Would we count them as disengaged?
Were you open on the Friday as well? Last week?
Yes.
So really,
Yes.
when we're looking at
I was trying
disconnected,
to
we're
think of
looking,
when did the 3rd happen?
the 3rd was the Thursday, I believe.
Thursday, yeah, Thursday.
Right. So what if we had a student that, let's say they're still out on vacation and they did not come in and they're a strictly remote learner? Would we say that they're disengaged even though we might know that they were out on vacation still?
That's a good question. And so they're still marked absent on that day, right?
Correct.
Because they're technically not
But
connected.
we knew that they already told
Yeah.
the school that they
Yeah.
would be out.
I'm gonna put this for our parking lot for right after this webinar too, because I want to put something in writing that's consistent for everybody. And again, I'm committing to getting answers on all of these later this afternoon. So this would be another one that we should clarify and have a consistent answer. It seems reasonable, just this opining here. This is not, don't take this as definitive. It seems reasonable because you know where the kid is. But if so it seems reasonable on the face of it, but let me just connect with the team and we'll put out guidance or clarify this very shortly.
Thank you.
Sure.
G, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. The next question I have is from Alicia Lacomte. Alicia, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask a question. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. And I'm sorry if someone else already asked this. I got here late. Today was our first day and dismissal was a bit chaotic. I see that this is being recorded. Did you already mention where the recording would be available to us?
No, I didn't. We'll have to figure that and get you a link probably later tonight when the whole thing renders, the whole video renders. We should be able to get it to you later this evening.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, no problem. All right, next question I have is from Tamara Gloucester. Hi, Tamara. Go ahead.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Abe. Hi.
Hi.
I think you're back muted, Tamara.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So we started today. Today was our first day, and we are deploying laptops and scheduling deployments for parents to pick up their laptops. And so we've put out that we're expecting for all of our remote students to be live and ready to go for Monday, September 21st. So what would that look like for us with our first two, if you will, weekly reports?
When does your school actually start?
Well, we started today.
And are you saying that the remote students are also not starting today?
Some of them don't have their laptops yet.
Okay. So some students are starting, have no way of starting this week and potentially starting at a later date. So
Correct.
this is another one that I want to huddle with the team on, and we will get back to you on that. It seems that if the students are enrolled, then they are actively part of your student group. And if they're not connecting this week, then to me, they would, and they're fully remote, then they would be part of the fully remote bucket and also the disconnected bucket if they're totally not connecting at all. But let me huddle with the group and I will get back to you, Tamara, and everyone.
Thank you.
Sure. The next question is from Christine Carver. Christine, go ahead. You have to unmute.
Hi, Ajit. I got my question answered. I'm sorry I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, nope, no worries. We're just trying to cover the bases. No worries. Good to hear your voice. Next question is from Joanne Sabato. Joanne, you have to unmute yourself and ask a question. Joanne, are you there?
Have one unmute.
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm going to the next question from Karen Veillot. Go ahead, Karen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So just want to make sure I'm going to be doing this right. So on the first, the learning model by grade, our elementaries are all in person, middle and high are hybrid. But we do have families in the district that are chose to be remote. So on the first screen, we can't choose any, that's not an option because we would hit fully in person or hybrid.
That's correct. The grade level selection is what is the school offering, right? It's the school's offered learning model.
Okay, so even though we are offering fully remote, but it's parent choice only, we're not picking that on the front page or on that page. But we would include those remote students that are by choice on the second.
That's correct. When you get to the enrollment count, and Abe's highlighting the section in the guidance that basically has that language. So you could be a fully in-person school, but you have a certain portion of your student body opting to be fully remote. So your school's model would be fully in person, but you have a percentage or a portion of your students who are fully remote. So in the first page, when you have to do by grade, you would select whatever the school's model is. And then when you get to the student count, that's where you would tell us how many of the students are have opted into fully remote in your instance. Now, we also heard of another example earlier where the whole school was offering a program that was fully remote. So in that case, those kids would also be included in the fully remote count. But in your case, if your elementary school is fully in person, then the only kids from that school who would go into that fully remote bucket would be those parents who opted their students into fully remote.
Okay, great. And then I know you're going to follow up on this, but I would also like some more guidance of further defining a disconnected student, because at the beginning of this, I was thinking, an absence, but it's really not. If we know, like say the parents calling and saying they're not going to be in today, and that doesn't seem to be what your, disconnected definition is. So I'm trying to figure out how we're going to track that, almost like we need to have a separate code for those students. And then I also wanted to reiterate what other schools had mentioned, is we could have students changing at any time. So having like that cutoff date of Friday, it's what they are by Friday is a good thing. We also may have students that are quarantining, and they would be an in-person student, but now they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So they might go remote during that time and then come back in person. So I just wanted to put that out there.
That's right. And so for the time that they're quarantining, they would be fully remote student, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then when they're back in person, they become you expect them to attend in person or a hybrid or whatever the
Correct.
other. Yeah.
So thank
Yeah,
you.
we will clarify the disconnected. I think the point of the when the parent has notified you, vacation, whatever, how should that be handled from the disconnected perspective, I think is a good question.
And just to follow up, when you define that, would it also be like a certain time period? Because I'll just give an example. At elementary level, they'll have like a morning meeting and the student appears live on the morning meeting, but never connects the rest of the day. So we've kind of gone by they have to be connected or, engaged for a half day, like the attendance
Right.
model. So.
Right. I don't want to conflate this notion of disconnected that we're collecting in the survey. I don't want to conflate that with the whole attendance piece, because there is a clear definition from the state board of what it means to be in attendance. And that means that they're there for at least half the school day. And obviously for an in-person kid, that's, you can, pre-COVID, it was so much simpler, even though we felt it was complicated, but it was so much simpler in some ways. But now in the post-COVID world, obviously it's very different. So I don't want to conflate this notion of disconnected with the attendance. Attendance to me is a completely different threshold of half the school day and all that stuff. This disconnected has a very, very different purpose here. We're just trying to find out, who's not plugged into school, who's like just gone, missing, so that's really where we're going. But I know there are some nuanced questions like this vacation, parent has notified you that the kid's going to be out, that type of thing. We will clarify that and let you know so that you can report them appropriately.
So, and based on this definition I'm seeing is if they connect even for like one moment during the day, they're connected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because you saw them, they're there.
Yep.
This is not an attendance measure. This is just a are they are they there, or are they like completely disconnected?
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. I see also a question from Linda. I'm sorry, I'm gonna not pronounce this properly. Aquota. I can't unmute you, Linda, because I don't know. Doesn't seem like you're connected to the audio of this conference here, so I can't really unmute you here. You should be asked to enter a PIN, and then you should be able to unmute yourself. But I can't unmute you in this forum here. Sorry. Okay, I'm lowering everybody's hand now. If there are any remaining questions, could you please raise your hand? Okay. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to express a concern when we're talking about the disconnect between disconnected and attendance. And I think I understand what you're trying to collect and trying to identify. My concern is from a practical standpoint, when we have a large district with thousands of kids, to know who literally is disconnecting versus absent. It almost seems like it's a personal thing to know about each student. And when we're doing something like, did a parent call the child in sick, like for a vacation? Well, that might be an unexcused absence, but from a data standpoint, that would look exactly the same as somebody who just was absent that day and didn't call in. And so the kind of things we do have a different way for our virtual kids to be able to tell that they weren't engaged, but some of the things that we're talking about, I'm concerned that from a district-wide level, when we're trying to pull out this data to report it to you, that we're not going to necessarily know that those finer points about students, like this student over here was having trouble with their Khajiit, and so their hotspot wasn't working. And this student, but they were in touch with us. And this student over here, their Chromebook was broken, and they're in the middle of exchanging it. We won't we won't know that at the higher level. And so being able to get you exactly what you're asking for could be very, very hard. And so when you're going back to your groups and thinking about how you want to, what you want from us and how you want us to report it, I just wanted to share that. I'm concerned that it would be, it's almost like we need to collect something from every single tech person and school secretary and teacher about every student. I mean, people who don't even get involved in putting data into the software.
So
They
just to be
would
clear,
have the answers to some of this.
so just to be clear, we're not asking for the reason for disconnection. We're not asking for, you know, whether it was lack of a laptop or a computer or anything. That's not the question. The question is only about, and also the question about disconnection is only about the fully remote students. So it's not about students who are in a hybrid model or coming in person model. We're not really asking about those students. We're only asking about those who are fully remote. And
So
really what we're
we have,
asking.
oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
didn't mean,
No. So go ahead, Amy.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It's just that, so it's really about only about those fully remote students and not about anyone else in the district. And is Fairfield opening up as a hybrid?
We're opening up as a hybrid, but we have close to 1,000 kids who are always remote.
And so this would be those students for whom there was absolutely no connection during the past week. And I don't know when Fairfield opened.
We opened today.
Okay. So this would be for this week, if you had 1,000 remote students, is there a way for you to ascertain centrally of those 1,000 students who had no connection at all in the past week, or in this week, that is?
It's easier for me to tell who had a connection than who didn't. You know, saying I could see who connected, but if somebody didn't connect electronically, the only way I would know if there was an extenuating circumstance would be to pull the teacher and the secretary for that school personally, individually. What's the story on this student? What's the story on that student?
Yeah. So if we had, so we'd have to sort of, so in this case, it seems like if you know who is connected, then the inverse of that would be the ones we're looking for, except if we allow for some exceptions, then it would require you to go back and find out, like, did the student do this? Did the student do that? Whatever, right? So if you know who's connected among your fully remote students, you have 1,000 students, if 950 of them had some connection in the past week, it seems to me that the simplest answer would be to say 50 students were disconnected, right? But so what is the question then in terms of those 50 students? What would you need to go back to those staff and find out if you know that 50 students did not connect at all in the past week?
So that's the.
Because it seems to me that that's sufficient of an answer to just tell us that there were 50 students who were remote last week who should have connected. There is absolutely no evidence of them connecting last week.
And I can leave it at that.
That seems like what we're trying to get at here.
Okay. Well, you were talking about kids who called in for a people who said that they were going to be on vacation, or people who were having connectivity issues, and that I couldn't tell without asking about each of the students individually.
Right, meaning that you see no evidence in the program, but did they not connect because of some other extenuating circumstance such that you should remove them from the disconnected count, right? That's what you're asking about.
Right.
Yeah, I think it may be that a smaller district can do a little bit more fine-grained nuance verification, if you will, and a larger district might just be able to say, look, here's the number of students for whom we have no evidence at the district level of disconnection. The more we add those exceptions to this disconnection, I think the greater the inconsistency it seems like we introduce into this definition.
That's what I'm concerned about. Yes.
Yeah. So it's good clarification. When we debrief after this, I think that's a good point to keep in mind, Amy. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. And if I could just share one of the things that I got, if you will, understood as you were speaking, is that if I have somebody who's marked with a not participation-based attendance code, but like an absent, unexcused, I don't have to question why, but by the fact that they have that, I know that somebody was in touch, some parent was in touch with the school, and so I would count them as engaged.
Because it's an excused absence, right? You said excused?
Or even if it was unexcused, like it was a vacation day, then at least I knew that the parent had been in touch with the office, and that's why they have this other kind of code.
As opposed to, you have a separate code in your system for disconnected students?
It's a not engaged code for kids who aren't engaged when they're on their virtual days.
Okay, so you have created that in Fairfield to track those students separately.
Yes.
Okay, and so that may be the closest to this definition that we're talking about here.
Yes, and I wanted to share that just in case someone else was doing something similar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Not simple. Appreciate it.
No.
Appreciate your help here.
Thank you. I appreciate yours.
Linda Brock. Hi, Linda. I have unmuted you. There you go. You should be able to ask your question now.
Hi, Jeet. I just wanted to clarify for your collective thinking that by setting this, in a sense, by setting the standard as low as you have in making the distinction between attendance and disengagement, that potentially will push districts to have to set up an entirely parallel data tracking structure to record this data, and make it very time consuming and difficult to actually produce the counts you're looking for unless they're quite small, because our automated systems are programmed around the state's attendance rules, the 50% rule. So if we're tracking attendance and using the rules that were sent out on Friday, then a student who was either under participating or not connected at all would be deemed absent within the distance absent count, so to speak. But because most student information systems are set up to do some automatic calculation to generate that count based on a 50%, under or over the 50% of the day cutoff, it's actually very difficult or impossible for us to make the distinction between someone who was completely not in attendance versus low attendance for the day with the automated systems currently available to us.
So what you're saying is that you're built to track attendance. Disconnection, this low threshold, is not currently tracked easily.
That's correct. In other words, our systems will not feed back information, given the way they're currently designed and structured, to distinguish between someone who was not in attendance at all versus who was in attendance less than 50% of the day. For reporting practices, those come out to the same thing. They come out as a student who was not in attendance, because that's the state rule.
For state reporting purposes, you count them as absent. And so
Exactly.
if I were to tell you, tell me the kid who was absent on all 5 days or all school days of the week, that would be easier for you to do than to.
Yes, it would. Exactly.
Okay.
Without regard as to whether absent meant they never connected at all versus they connected briefly but were not judged to have met the totality of engagement and work that the rule provided on Friday would lead to.
Is there a way for you to back into some notion of disconnected from the data that you have?
I'd have to see if there were any way to circumvent the system based on attendance codes, but generally speaking, the outputs that the SISs in broad use in Connecticut, multiples of them, are designed to give is a binary present or absent. based on whether the underlying code is considered to be an absent status or a present status, even if it's period by period, or a chunk of time by chunk of time. So.
Yeah, appreciate your sharing that. Not sure what I can say at this point, but let's go back. We'll go back and discuss the few scenarios that have been thrown out today. I know that not all districts are actually set up yet to track remote remote membership, remote attendance differently from in-person membership and in-person attendance. So that's why we wanted to at least get that part of the communication out. And we thought this would actually be an easier, lower, simple threshold for districts to meet instead of trying to set up attendance systems. That was the rationale for going for this disconnected definition at this point. So I'd say for now, do the best you can with the codes and definitions that you have to try to ascertain, what is the number of students who you would say, you know what, we've looked at our attendance codes, excused, unexcused absence, and again, we're only talking about those who are fully remote here, and say that, you know what, these students, we've tried our best, there's been no connection. And by definition, I would imagine they would be the ones who would be absent by definition, but then they would be not just absent, but also like absolutely no presence, no connection at all. And that's the part that is the extra step that's not just automated from your system.
Right. Making that distinction between someone who had momentary connection but under participation versus no connection whatsoever is where the crux of it lies.
Right. I think we went with this, and again, we went with this partly because not everybody is set up to do the full attendance tracking for remote days, because we just came out with that guidance on how to even count presence on those remote days. So I know we're all flying super fast here. So and we're trying to do our best. So the best I can say right now is using the codes that you have, do the best you can to try to make a determination of students who were fully remote, and of those who were fully remote, those who had absolutely no connection. I mean, and clearly, if you don't have that disconnection flag in your system, you're going to do your best to sort of whittle it down to those who were, let's say, absent on all 4 days, and maybe you apply some additional rules to exclude those who have excused absences and things like that. But again, we'll come out with some clarifying guidance. I really need to huddle with the group right after this to clarify the scenarios that have come up, and then we'll get back to you with something later this afternoon or this evening by now. I'm sorry, but that's the best we're able to do at this point. We kept this at an aggregate level, at a district level, precisely to allow for some level of judgment on the part of the district, because this is not student level and this is not perfect. When Kendra comes around at the end of the month with that student level collection, there will be a lot more definition and we'll have greater precision, because there we're really just collecting days of membership and days of attendance, which fit our definition. So it should be straightforward. The issue will be, or the place where we'll practice there is to know how to count days of membership and days of attendance for remote days. So that's where we'll need a little bit of practice. So but at least there we're fitting within the existing infrastructure, it seems like, for tracking attendance. So do the best you can with this fully remote disconnected students. Again, we're really just trying to get a gauge of those who are fully remote and then of those who are like totally disconnected. So do the best you can with that. And hopefully once we have the attendance collection stood up, that we won't be needing to do this weekly thing, but that's yet to be determined, like Abe mentioned at the outset. But this is really just designed to help us get a sense at the start of the school year, with all schools opening in all different models, what is the extent of fully remote students and the extent of total disconnection. So we will be back in touch with a follow-up communication later this evening. And Abe, any closing thoughts from your perspective at this point? Because if not, I think we're good here.
I do have one quick one. Yeah, thanks, Ajit. Just to be clear, in terms of the start date question, sort of a simple thing, that question will go away after the first week. So it's important that if you have whatever your start date is, I know some of them are 9/20 and so forth, get that in this week. Obviously, you can't submit any data until that reporting week, but it will be going away after this week, and we will be searching for that completed survey this first week from everybody. Absolutely. So please complete it, that start date question. So that's it from me. Thank you for attending and your patience on this complicated, it is complicated topic.
Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.